Here we go. So next up, we have a contested race, and we have questions that we'll be using in this too. This is the DeKalb County State's Attorney's race. And so if we could get the two candidates, we have Republican incumbent Clay Campbell and Democratic challenger Richard Schmack. Please come to the table. And we're going to start this off. Here's how this will work. We're going to have a 2-minute opening statement from each of the candidates. And then we'll have questions that have been submitted from the audience and also over through email questions. We'll give each person 2 minutes to answer the question, alternating between who answers the question first, and then we'll have 2-minute closing statements. So let's start off with incumbent Clay Campbell and your opening statement, 2 minutes.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for putting on this forum. I think it's obviously imperative that we continue to have public discourse whenever we're choosing candidates. Rather than take this time right now to go through my credentials, I think the local media has done a nice job, the Chronicle, Public Radio, and the Northern Star, in setting forth the various issues that affect our race and the positions that we take on those issues. I wanted to tonight talk directly about the situation involving John Farrell within my office. Friday at about 3 o'clock, I was informed that Mr. Farrell had apparently lied to a public official about a pending case here in DeKalb County. I immediately confronted Mr. Farrell with those allegations, and Mr. Farrell admitted to me that he had indeed lied to a public official about a case. Mr. Farrell then resigned his position as Chief Civil Assistant within the office. Within an hour of me learning about this impropriety, I took immediate action and accepted his resignation. By Monday, I had appointed Stephanie Klein, the Chief Civil Assistant within the DeKalb County State's Attorney's Office. She is an outstanding litigator, and I look forward to her service. I want to tonight, though, say that I'm disgusted by the political exploitation by my opponent of this issue. Mr. Farrell has served this community for a long time, both as Civil Assistant to State's Attorney Matakaitis. He was actually appointed State's Attorney by the DeKalb County Board, and he served within my office in many instances with distinction. He has nearly 40 years as a state and federal litigator, and anybody that's followed the story that was reported today can clearly see that he's suffering some personal issues. I wanted to tonight condemn the exploitation of this gentleman's situation, and I think that we should be above that here, considering the safety issues that we face here in the city of DeKalb.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. Mr. Schmack, your opening statement.
Yes, well, I'll dispense with my opening statement as well. But first, I would like to thank the League of Women Voters for the opportunity to appear here. I would like to thank my wife, Jackie. Jackie and I have lived here in the Sycamore, DeKalb area in Sycamore since 1985 when I came to work for the State's Attorney's Office in this county. We've raised our 2 children, Eric and Ben, here. We still live in the same house that we've lived in since 1986. I have my law office, a private practice of law in the house next door to that home, and I've served the community for the last 26 years as an assistant state's attorney and as a private attorney in private practice, I believe with honor and integrity throughout. So therefore, I take great exception to Mr. Campbell's statements, because in this situation, I brought this to Mr. Campbell's attention. I told him in an open letter what happened with Mr. Farrell. I advised him that in the interest of openness, I would disclose it to the public so that everyone could judge in an open manner what our dealings were between the two of us. Certainly, I advised him that I thought this reflected poorly on the way he was running his office, because not only was there the situation with Mr. Farrell involving the case that I discovered on Wednesday, which no one was aware of, but there was another situation with Mr. Farrell that I believe Mr. Campbell should have been aware of for the last 6 months, that I believed he was investigating for the last 6 months, that I have not talked about during that time while running. I feel that it is appropriate that this be a matter for public concern and public scrutiny in terms of the way that Mr. Campbell has run his office. So I make no apologies for bringing an issue in the interest of transparency and openness in government directly to the people and giving everyone a copy of the letter that I sent to Mr. Campbell so everyone in this community can be fully aware of what's going on and not get bits and pieces and have it spun for political gain.
Thank you very much, Mr. Schmack. Our first question will start with Clay Campbell, and you have 2 minutes. Both of you will have the same question, and that's, please explain how you plan to make DeKalb safe.
We're working right now on various initiatives to make DeKalb safe. We're working with state and federal authorities to try to interdict some of the gun and drug traffic that's coming into DeKalb. Over the weekend, I'm proud to report that we had a largely uneventful homecoming weekend, largely thanks to the leadership of the new Chief of Police here in DeKalb, Gene Lowry. We had an unprecedented amount of resources here in DeKalb. We did the same thing last year, and I had the honor of riding around with those officers Friday night, and assistants in my office rode around Saturday night. We are deeply committed to ensuring the safety of this city, and we are deeply committed to working with Northern Illinois University and DeKalb City to ensure that the safety of the students are of paramount importance to this community. We are engaged in the process of trying to formulate a narcotic task force. It's been a prodigious effort that we've been working on for about 2 years now. We are trying to get the financing together to do that. We have taken the unprecedented step of diverting a large number of kids away from the court system, largely following the lead of Judge Matakaitis when he was state's attorney, of diverting kids away from the system. We are trying to take the resources within our office and focus on those on the most dangerous criminals that prowl our streets. The only way that we are going to make DeKalb safe is with the friends and neighbors here in this city, working closely with law enforcement, with the state's attorney's office and the various other prosecuting agencies throughout the state, to ensure that we send a signal to everybody from here to Chicago that if you come out to DeKalb and it's your intention to commit a crime or to do harm, we're going to do everything we can to lock you up. So we're trying to divert the nonviolent offenders away from the system and completely focus our resources on those that are bringing guns and heroin into our community.
Thank you very much, Mr. Campbell. Mr. Schmack.
Yes. I agree with what Mr. Campbell has said about efforts to make the community safer. But with all due respect, Mr. Campbell has not really told us what he's going to do to make the community safer. He's given us rhetoric. The community can only be made safer by the cooperation between the NIU Police Department, the DeKalb Police Department, and the state's attorney's office, city officials, and officials of NIU. In terms of making the city of DeKalb safe, or safer than it is now. That should be something that we are endlessly pursuing, improve safety in this community. But the state's attorney's office has a role in this to prosecute crime as it occurs, to prosecute all crime, to prosecute the most serious and the less serious crimes, to study each crime and look at what's in the best interest of the victim, what's in the best interest of the defendant and the defendant's family, what's in the best interest, most importantly, of justice in the community as a whole. Diversion is a key and important component in certain and appropriate cases, but not all the time. No, we don't need rhetoric. We need a constant cooperation between the agencies, and that starts, more than anything, with the respect that I learned about in working with police agencies during my years as an assistant state's attorney. There's no better preparation for fighting crime or working with the police than being an assistant state's attorney. You know that the most important thing that the police are looking for from a state's attorney is that prompt response on a daily basis from the state's attorney to the chiefs, from the assistants to the police on the beat. Prompt return of phone calls is actually the single most important thing, and notifying your police officers to when they're actually going to be required in court is key. A better managed system is how we stop crime in this county, or reduce it.
Thank you, Mr. Schmack. Our next question, we'll start with Mr. Schmack on this one. Please discuss the future of the drug court.
Yes, thank you very much for that question. I think it's important to remember that drug court is and must remain an indispensable tool for addressing nonviolent crimes by addicts. The state's attorney is integral to that team. Prior to the institution of drug court, little effort was made to end the revolving door that we see of brief prison sentences, where sobriety is sporadically enforced without effective addiction treatment, followed by a short spell of freedom, swift return to addiction, new criminal charges leading to another prison sentence. It's a multidisciplinary and ever-evolving approach striving to break this cycle. And although relapses can occur, it's been a source of real progress for most of its participants and their families. Failure of any one participant is not a failure of the program. This program is working. It has been working. In fact, there never has been anything wrong with the way this program is being conducted in this county. Its success depends on the contribution of a fully engaged state's attorney who will do more than pay lip service to it while campaigning and ignore it in office. I'm committed to ending the current practice of assigning an assistant to drug court. I will assume personal membership on the drug court team following the example of Ron Matakaitis. A state's attorney who stays involved in drug court will know what's happening there. There won't be any temptation to launch any sort of investigation into drug court when you yourself are the person involved in it on a daily basis. When you know, when you're there every Friday with people, when they come in and when they're there for their drug test, when they come in and you're part of that team that's analyzing them, you know their strengths and weaknesses. That's got to be something that the state's attorney himself is involved in. That can't be delegated to an assistant. In an administration with me in charge, that's what would be happening. I would follow the example, again, as I said, of Judge Matakaitis, who was one of the founders of the drug court. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schmack. Mr. Campbell.
The future of criminal prosecution obviously must emphasize treatment over incarceration. No rational person opposes treatment for individuals with addictions. But it's important to remember that the drug court cases constitute 1.5% of the total number of felonies that come through the system. So this is a very, very small select group of individuals that have been given the privilege of having tax money spent to try to cure their addiction. So the other 98.5% of the cases that are coming through the courthouse, those are felony cases that we're prosecuting on a daily basis. I have spent the last 2 years working on 4 murder cases. 3 of them have been prosecuted to guilty convictions. We have another extensive murder trial on December 3rd that's going to begin here, the prosecution of William Curl for the murder of Antoinette Keller. It is unconscionable to imagine that I should spend an excessive amount of time in drug court. And remember, drug court is individuals that have committed serious felony offenses that generally are avoiding going to prison and given the opportunity to serve in drug court. The idea that I have to look these families in the eyes, these mothers and fathers, and talk about prosecuting their kids' cases, the idea that I would distract away from that important effort to be able to grandstand like Mr. Schmack just did and talk about spending Fridays in drug court, I think is ridiculous. We have exceptional people that go to drug court. These are attorneys with experience, and we will continue to fully support the drug court effort here in DeKalb County. But we must also be mindful that the victims and their families' plights are more important than individuals that are in drug court. So I am proud to stand with those families, and I am proud to work on the prosecutions of those cases, even if it means I can't spend as much time involved in the local drug court.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. And our final question, talk about, this first goes to Mr. Campbell, talk about the state's attorney's role in the county, the administrative part, the courtroom, and what you want your office to be like.
I want my office to be the best prosecutors in the state of Illinois. The people that I hire are exceptional. I would match the felony prosecutors in my office against any in the country. We deserve the best. And I was astonished at the phone calls that we received from around the country as a result of this last 55-year-old murder prosecution. This was countless hours spent by law enforcement and prosecutors in my office to put that case on. It was an extraordinary effort by the public servants here in the DeKalb County State's Attorney's Office. So I expect when they come into work every day that they put the people's interest first. Now, there's a myriad of interests that encompass the state's attorney's office. I'm responsible for all the prosecutions here in the county, whether it's traffic tickets or felony cases. We're responsible for all the civil matters involving the county. So we have thousands of cases that move through our office every single year, and I could not do it without the 12 exceptional attorneys in my office and the extraordinary staff that's within my office and the personnel here in this county, the local law enforcement, that go out each and every day and put their lives on the line to keep us safe. So when we talk about what exactly is the state's attorney's office, you know, Mr. Campbell, what is your priority? The most important priority in my office is public safety. Every single case that we look at, we analyze it through the lens of public safety. If I can divert a kid away from the court system and maintain public safety, I will do that. If I have to send somebody to prison or ask a judge to send somebody to prison to maintain the public safety, I will do that also. It is not an easy job. It takes constant balancing, and it takes integral interaction and cooperation between the office and local law enforcement. And I am proud to say here tonight I have a personal relationship with every single chief of police here in this county and the federal prosecutors up in Rockford, and that took a lot of hard work to get us to that place.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. And Mr. Schmack, again, talk about the state's attorney's role in the county, administrative, courtroom, the balance there, and what you want your office to be like.
My first, in fact, my only priority is to do this job properly and to do it right. Now, Mr. Campbell says his priority, his number one priority is public safety, but when he ran for this office, he listed a series of other priorities, one of which was to stop the mega dump. He hasn't stopped the mega dump. In fact, he's defending the landfill expansion in court, as is appropriate, because as state's attorney, he should be defending it in court. But he knew when he ran that he'd be defending it in court, and that was his number one priority, doing the opposite of what he's actually doing. Another one of his priorities was to stop the courthouse expansion. Next week, he'll be moving into the courthouse. As far as I know, he did nothing to stop that. That was his priority 2 years ago. He said he'd lower taxes. How did he plan to lower taxes? State's attorney doesn't levy taxes. State's attorney can't lower taxes. That was a priority 2 years ago. Now public safety is a priority. Public safety was a priority 2 years ago, too. He was going to eradicate crime. He hasn't done that yet. Now, and I don't think he can. Nobody can eradicate crime. It's unfortunate, but crime, it will always be with us. What we have to do is fight crime, and fight crime by working with the police department and doing it in a responsible fashion by working in a coordinated effort with them. Now, as far as the running the office itself, it does have a myriad of responsibilities. You are the attorney for every single agency of county government, not just the county board, but every other agency. You need to have a civil assistant that's up to the job, and you need to have some experience. I was the civil assistant for this county. I know the people there. Many of those people who I worked with when I was the civil assistant are still in county office. Sheriff Scott for one, Coroner Miller for another. I worked closely with those people 25 years ago. I can work closely with them today. As I said, my number one priority is to do the job that I am hired to do, to be the state's attorney for this county. And I will say, I do believe all of the felony assistants are excellent, excellent trial lawyers, and as they were all hired by Judge Matakaitis, my hat's off to him for selecting that group of people and bringing them in. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schmack. And now we come to closing statements. And Mr. Schmack, you will get 2 minutes. You go first.
Sure. I'm not a flamboyant orator. I don't use alarmist rhetoric. I'm a calm, level-headed, and experienced attorney capable of instituting a new level of professionalism. 32 years practicing in almost every area of the law make me the most experienced lawyer in this race. I am the more experienced prosecutor in years, cases handled, and cases won without on-the-job training as the state's attorney with my experience as assistant state's attorney. I am my service as a civil assistant state's attorney and Kirkland Village attorney, as well as working for other villages occasionally when they had attorneys who had conflicts, make me the more qualified local government lawyer. DeKalb County deserves a steady leader as its chief legal officer to prosecute crime vigorously while seeking a just result in every case. Punishment should always fit not just the crime, as I said earlier, but the needs of everyone concerned, the victim, the defendant, the defendant's family, and society as a whole. I will provide clear guidelines and real leadership to my assistants so they can assess each criminal case on its own merits, and with a constant eye to the fair administration of justice as well as the zealous representation of the people. The county needs an advocate who understands local government and understands how to give sound advice, not sound bites, to county officials. My experience as a lawyer has taught me not to make wild promises, which I cannot hope to deliver. My only commitment is to doing the actual business of the state's attorney and to doing the job right. The office comes with a job description, 13 specific duties imposed by the State's Attorney Act, and a whole lot of other duties imposed by a whole lot of different statutes. We don't need to dream up other things to do, like monitoring other officials and grading their job performance, suggesting revised admission standards for NIU or Kishwaukee College, or lecturing local landlords regarding their choice of tenants. I will bring some much-needed maturity, experience, and responsibility to the Office of State's Attorney. I hope that I can count on your vote in November.
Thank you, Mr. Schmack. And Mr. Campbell, your closing statement.
In the last 2 years, we've had an interesting experience at the courthouse. We've started to notice individuals that are arrested the night before coming up on bond call, and when the judge asks them what they do, whether they work, do they go to school, they've indicated that they go to Kish College or Northern. When we look into their backgrounds, we're fairly astonished that they're actually students because many of them have extensive criminal histories. So when Mr. Schmack opposes me speaking out about admission standards, if I see this university letting individuals in here that are endangering the children in this community, I have a responsibility to speak up and oppose that plan. We are at a crossroads here in the city of DeKalb. Northern Illinois University is at a crossroads. We are either going to take our streets back and take our university back, or it's going to slide, and we're going to continue to see declining enrollment and declining property values here in the city of DeKalb. Mr. Schmack has made a point of saying that the most pressing issue in the future, the most pressing danger that faces the public is traffic. That is a fundamental misapprehension of the dangers that are facing this community. You talk to these City of DeKalb police officers that patrol these streets every weekend, and they'll talk to you about guns, they'll talk to you about heroin, and they'll talk to you about internet pornographers. They'll talk to you about those being the real threats that face our children. We are absolutely committed to making sure that the university here at Northern is both transparent and it's safe. That northwest quadrant of DeKalb is a headache for all of us, and we are working extremely hard to preserve that institution. As Northern goes, so goes the rest of the county. That is a very specific plan that's been put into place in cooperation with the Northern Police Department to try to ensure that we send a message throughout the Midwest to families that are going to send their children to our university that we are going to treat the safety of your children just like we treat the safety of our own. And we will accomplish that goal.
Thank you very much, Mr. Campbell. Thank you to both of the candidates.